Hello and welcome to the second episode of SheEIC, Empowering, Innovating and Changing the Business World podcast. I'm your host, Oana Popescu, and I'm working at the European Innovation Council, or in short EIC, the place where we nurture Europe's top tech ventures. This podcast is part of the EIC Women Leadership Programme, the ultimate support destination for women in innovation and tech who want to take their career to the next level. The program is part of a wide range of EIC Business Acceleration Services and opens the door to a vibrant community helping women to boost their skills and reach their full potential via coaching services and networking opportunities. The EIC Women Leadership Programme hosts 3 cohorts per year, and it is open to women researchers, aspiring leaders, and entrepreneurs from the EIC and EIT communities. We will shine a spotlight on outstanding women among Women Leadership Programme participants and EIC awardees. Their success stories will hopefully pave the way for other women to take center stage as leaders and innovators. In today's episode, we will explore the topic of communication, possibly the cornerstone of all successful innovation endeavors. Joining us on this journey today, we have Niamh Donnelly, co-founder of Akara Robotics, a medtech company leveraging AI to streamline and optimize healthcare services. Niamh is the winner of the 2022 EU Prize for Women Innovators, which celebrates outstanding women's contributions to innovation and entrepreneurship in Europe. With us is also Rebecca Williams, a public speaking, storytelling, and presentation expert who helps mission-driven organizations and purpose-driven overachievers change the world through effective communication. She has served as a public speaking coach at the Stanford Graduate School of Business and has trained professionals and teams at organizations worldwide, including Google, Meta, and Netflix. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for accepting our invitation to join the second episode of our podcast.
Yeah, really excited to be here. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Oana. Nice to meet you, Niamh.
Nice to meet you too.
All right, let's dive right in. Niamh, you were the winner of the EU Prize for Women Innovators 2022. And last year, actually, you won the pitching competition at the Gender Gap in Investment, an event held in Berlin. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to become recognized by the EU as one of the top women innovators?
Yeah, for sure. And it's been quite a long, winding journey, but I'll try to condense it down. And so I guess growing up as a kid, I always loved tinkering with things, building things. I always wanted to know how something worked. And my dad was an engineer and would always do little engineering projects with me, building little circuits. So that really led to my interest in science and maths and technology and led me to study mechanical engineering. So I got my bachelor's degree. And while I was studying engineering in my final year, I fell ill and spent a little bit of time in hospital. And while I was in hospital, still learning about all these advancements in engineering, and I couldn't understand why I wasn't seeing them more in hospital settings and in healthcares. I mean, they were still using pagers and just not operating efficiently. And essentially that kind of led to my fascination with technology and the intersection of healthcare, and went on to co-found Akara with my team. So at Akara, we essentially solve this problem. So we help hospitals become more efficient through the use of robots that clean rooms faster and to a higher standard, and AI sensors that sit in hospital operating rooms and give staff information as to how they can better schedule for surgery, so how they can become more efficient. So I think that was one of the reasons I won the Women Innovators Award, because what we're doing is kind of groundbreaking. We're deploying robots where they're not traditionally deployed in the past.
This is a clear example of identifying a need and providing a solution to it. Rebecca, tell us a little bit about your day-to-day. What does the work of a communication coach involve?
Of course. Yeah. Well, I have the great pleasure of listening to really interesting people all day long and helping them give better presentations, tell better stories, and communicate more clearly so that their ideas really land with an audience, and so that the audience can then take that idea and either fund it or tell other people about it. And it's such a joy. So for example, Niamh, She won the pitching competition and has had great success with her ability to communicate her idea. And I believe one of the reasons that's true is because she tells a great story. And a lot of people forget that storytelling is such a big part of effective communication. So day to day, this is what I do. I help founders like Niamh. I help CEOs. I help teams communicate better. For example, last week I was working with the CEO of a crypto venture fund who was going to do a presentation on a stage at a conference. And he came to me with his presentation. And to be frank, it was quite dry. It was quite boring, highly technical. So I helped him find ways to engage the audience by asking questions, by telling stories, by using metaphors so that the technical concepts would actually land with a non-technical audience. So yeah, I work with people one-on-one, I work with teams, and then I also do educational programs like the SheEIC program with female founders in Vienna, teaching at Stanford Graduate School of Business. So it's a lot of education and a lot of working with people to help them communicate better.
Thank you, Rebecca. Now that we know a little bit more about yourselves, what role has impactful communication played in your respective careers, whether pitching to investors, leading teams, or speaking at high-stakes events? And how has your approach evolved over time? And maybe we can start with you, Rebecca.
Sure. Well, impactful communication, because that is my business, essentially, that informs everything I do. So I have to be really sure that I am being clear, I am being compelling, I am being memorable. And then also finding the most clear and concise way to teach other people how to do that, because I don't necessarily want to be in the passenger seat all the time helping someone deliver a great presentation. I want to teach them how to do it so that they don't need me anymore. Like I don't want to be the therapist that has someone for life, but I want to give them the tools that they need so that they say, oh yeah, like I know how this works. I know how to do it. And so that's how impactful communication works within my realm, within my career, my job. And the way that's evolved over time is, my dad, Niamh's dad was an engineer and my dad was an opera director. So you can imagine when I was a kid, he would pull me on the stage and he would get me to perform because he needed a child to play a role. And I did it happily. And what's true is that I've had to unlearn a lot of these performative ways. I've had to learn how to get on the stage and be authentically who I am and not play a role. And that's been my hardest journey. And it's something that I find that more and more, that's what I'm helping other people do as well, is remove that persona that they put together to give a presentation. And just show up as themselves and be vulnerable and tell stories. And sometimes even say, I don't know, when you don't know. So that's how it's evolved for me.
Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you for being vulnerable, actually, for sharing such a personal story. Niamh.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I feel like where I was the opposite of Rebecca and had to kind of learn to be a bit more performative in a way. And so the first time I realized just how important communication was when we were starting to raise private funding for our first venture round. And I did a kind of course probably similar to the ones Rebecca teaches, where you go in and you kind of come up with your 3-minute pitch. And every founder in the room, including myself, straight away goes into all the details of the features of their product and just talks about what they're doing. I remember the person helping us just said, the VCs don't really care about your product or technology. And that was a very big wake-up call for me. Because, well, I guess they do care, but they care more about your story and why you're doing this and why this will have an impact on your customers. So it's a different way of framing things. And it's a really good lesson in communication because you have to kind of not be yourself in a way and step away from the product and talk about it in terms of the customer, the investor. And so there's kind of a different story for each user group. And it's one of the most important things any founder learns is how to communicate their idea, because you really need to get people believing in your mission. And sometimes they don't care about the nitty-gritty specifics.
Thank you, Niamh. Building on what you have just said, right? So how to communicate about your idea. As a woman in innovation, do you find that you have to speak louder in order to be properly heard?
Yeah, I know I'll never be kind of the loudest person in the room, but it's not usually my tact. I'm kind of a little more measured. I'll sit back a little bit first and then kind of think about my input first. I am always very wary that I am sometimes being stereotyped initially. You know, I've had so many people come up to me when I tell them I'm an engineer, and they're very shocked and surprised and will say, you don't look like an engineer, or you don't seem like an engineer. So I think sometimes that is always in the back of my head when I'm interacting with someone for the first time. And I think it can be maybe a lot of what other women in my industry feel as well. So I tend to not try be the loudest person at first, but kind of get to know people and then really make sure that when I do have the floor, it's very intended what I say.
Thank you, Niamh. I would like to go back a bit to the EIC Women Leadership Programme. And I know, Rebecca, you train one of the cohorts. What unique communication strengths did you recognize among these women?
Well, I've actually trained 3 of the cohorts now. So I've had a great sample size to look at. And also I've been working with women for over 10 years now. But the unique strengths that I see women in particular have is that they're great connectors, and they're also great storytellers. And those 2 things go hand in hand, really. So, you know, back in the day, we can imagine when women would sit around together in groups and maybe they were sorting the seeds or the nuts or whatever that they had collected. And they would sit around and they would tell stories. And women are naturally really great at that. And like Niamh said, we have to be able to tell stories to get people on board with our ideas. It's the quickest way to communicate a complex idea is by telling a story. So that storytelling ability, and also the ability to connect, because women are naturally relational. We look for ways to make connections with other people because we know that that is going to help us influence and be have power at the end of the day, right? Like that's how we approach it. And those are the 2 skill sets that I'm coaching anyone on, men or women. It's really, how do you connect with an audience better? How do you tell better stories? And women, I think a lot of women, they think that they're not good communicators, that they think that they're not strong in that way because maybe they're not that loud or whatever. But really, at the end of the day, it's not about the volume of your voice. It's about your strategy. Like, okay, how are you going to persuade? Well, you need to tell a story to be able to persuade. You need to engage people on an emotional level. So getting really clear on the strategy is so much more important than raising your voice, for example. And women can absolutely learn those strategies and be very successful in their communication.
Thank you, Rebecca. Niamh, did you have any strategy? Because you are a woman innovator in a highly technical and traditionally male-dominated field. How has communication contributed to the growth and effectiveness of your leadership? Did you have a communication strategy?
Yeah, I think I kind of got one accidentally. So after a few pitches, so I got really obsessed with, doing the 3-minute pitch and kind of perfecting it. So I would go to these pitch competitions and just get up and try out a few things. The major feedback I got was that I'm very approachable and, authentic. And Rebecca, I think you kind of touched on that as well. And I think that's my superpower in pitching, is that people find it relatable. And I think that's because I share a story, or I really try explain what we're doing in kind of plain English as much as possible. And that authentic side has really kind of made me approachable, and like that goes to kind of LinkedIn posts, and it's not just verbal communication. Like I'm on LinkedIn, there was a few times I would post like really long posts about our product or what we're doing, and then found that just like a selfie in a hospital with our robots, just saying like deploying here, actually got a lot more traction than these really kind of just not authentic posts that people probably don't read. So it's definitely just being simple and approachable is my technique.
Simple and approachable. I wrote down this for me as well. For the next part of the episode, I would like to bring into attention this hot topic, Rebecca, because we witness nowadays a crowded digital landscape. And in the world of AI, remote work, rapid innovation, multiple digital platforms, we need a strategy to navigate all this. Can you tell us what are your top 3 strategies for entrepreneurs to stand out through powerful communication in 2025?
Yeah, of course. So the top 3 strategies I would say in order to stand out today are, and I'm going to say it, tell more stories, be clear, be more clear, and be more concise. So tell more stories. I've already talked about this. It's when people are making decisions, it's actually been proven that they have to be emotionally engaged in order to make a decision. So if they're deciding whether to fund your company, to buy your product, whatever it might be, they need to feel that emotional hook. We like to think it's logic, but logic is just one piece of the puzzle. We actually need emotions, logic, and credibility. So it's ethos, pathos, logos from Aristotle. Right? So telling stories is often what I find people forget to do. Like Niamh said, they lean hard on the features and benefits, and that's more the logical side of the thing. But they don't get that emotional hook, which is what you absolutely need to capture attention from the beginning, but then also help people make that decision to buy your product or service. So telling stories is the first thing. The second thing is being clear, being more clear. So another thing that Niamh said is she speaks in plain English, and maybe she had to learn how to do that. But what I see happening is that oftentimes founders or leaders, they'll get in the weeds of their own company or their own culture or their own product or service, and they forget that their audience does not have that understanding. They don't have that pool of knowledge to draw from. So what ends up happening is your audience is listening to you like, what? And if your audience is having that experience, it's not going to work. Like there's nowhere to go from there. So really speaking in a clear way, there's actually a website called Explain It Like I'm 5. I think that's what it's called. And you can literally write anything in the search or in the entry box on that website, and then it'll spit it out in plain English, like speaking to a 5-year-old or 6-year-old or whatever. You can do this with ChatGPT as well. You can write in all of your complicated jargon and then say, tell it to me like I'm 5. Or actually, it's actually more accurate to say, tell it to me like I'm a 6th grader in the US educational systems. But that is the level of English that we're meant to be speaking at when we're speaking to an audience that doesn't have that level of understanding that we need. So being clear is really important. And then finally, being concise. Get to your point and then stop talking. Know when to stop talking, I think, is one of the key things that I have to coach people on all of the time. And the way to know when to stop talking, the way to speak with this conciseness is to speak with structure. And there are a lot of structures that I teach, but knowing that your goal is to make your point, back it up with some illustrations and examples, and then stop. So those are the 3 things. Tell stories, be more clear. So speaking at a more simple and understandable language that everybody can understand, and then be concise and know when to stop talking.
I love how we blend the technical side with the human side. And I think this is a very good transition to my last question to conclude this episode. How can we use these 3 strategies? So telling stories, be clear, be concise, with building trust. So how do we communicate to build trust in a world where fake news are more and more present? Maybe we can start with you, Niamh.
Yeah, I think it's really hard, especially now where you don't know what you read online is true or not. And it's kind of a new era of AI generated information that we're moving into. But yeah, it's that kind of just being authentic and sharing only kind of what you feel passionate about, and making sure that you're sharing the truth. I mean, there's a lot of small startups that, you know, are under pressure and can maybe play with the truth a little bit. But yeah, making sure that what you're saying is actually what you're doing and is the truth is kind of what the rules we follow.
Yeah, and I would agree. In being vulnerable, I think, is the number one way to not only make sure you're telling the truth, because if you're sharing a personal story or an experience from your life, that, I mean, it could be fabricated, but why would you? So telling things that are actually unique to your experience on the planet is 100% the way that you can come off as genuine and trustworthy. And honestly, that's how we build brands, is we show up and we present as authentically ourselves. And then people start to build this know, like, and trust and say, oh yeah, you know, I want to work with that person. I want to buy their product or service. So being vulnerable, sharing stories, and speaking from personal experience, I think it's really feels to me like the only way to go.
To impress and to stay humble in the same time. Yeah. Thank you very much, Niamh and Rebecca, for sharing your insights and experiences. I hope our audience will find this episode very helpful in building a personal communication strategy. Thank you also to our audience for tuning in, and we look forward to welcoming you back for the next episode of SheEIC, empowering, innovating, and changing the business world. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.